Good morning everyone and welcome to this BIC Breakfast, which is entitled BIC Realtime Standards for Instant Business Message Exchange. I'd first like this opportunity to say a massive thank you to our sponsor BIC for hosting this event, and a huge thank you to our three fantastic speakers for today. So we've got John Garrold from Bertram's, we've got Francis Cave, who's a consultant at BIC, and Simon Pallard from Gardeners. Before we start the event properly, it'd be nice if everyone else could introduce themselves, just so everyone else knows who everyone else is. I'll start things off. I'm Elaine Marie Bassett. I'm the business manager at BIC, and skipping our two speakers that I just introduced, I'll start with Simon. Steve, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Steve Wright. I work for Buckinghamshire County Council in a library, the IT area, library service.
Mark Collins, project manager at Vote Sales, and regular video assistant.
I'm Jane Gregory, I'm Nielsen, I'm technical account manager there, doing mainly with public.
Fraser Tanner from Batch.
Simon Parker from Batch.
Lara Chris from Run House, Mixkeys.
I'm Alan Oliver, Business Development Director with Exlupus.
Miles Harrison with Styson.
My name is Gopi Rajendra and I'm with Club
I'm Velu Chami from Sage, working IT.
Thank you. So, what is a BIC Breakfast? BIC Breakfast are small, informal sessions that focus on a particular issue or a particular topic within the book industry, supply chain. They're set up deliberately to focus on, as I say, a particular topic, but for you to find out as much as you possibly can about that topic whilst you're at this event. So please do take this opportunity to ask any questions that you have, and there is a session at the end of the event for Q&A. But if you do have any really urgent questions that come up as a result of the presentations, I hope I'm right in saying our speakers won't mind you interrupting them briefly. Now for a little bit about BIC. BIC stands for Book Industry for Book Industry Communication. We're the book industry supply chains. Sorry, it's because I tripped myself up. We're the book industry. We are the book industry supply chains organisation, and we're charged with ensuring that the supply chain runs as smoothly as possible through the use of best practice and the application of industry-approved standards. We have a number of committees that help us do the work that we do. These include the Digital Supply Chain Committee, the Libraries Committee, the Metadata Committee, the Physical Supply Chain Committee, Training Events and Communications Committee. We also have a number of task and finishing working groups that fall under those particular committees that help us do a number of our projects. We hold regular events to try and get as much information as we can out there. Obviously, BIC Breakfast are one of those in their monthly sessions. We also hold a Building a Better Business seminar, which used to be our supply chain seminar at LBF every year, and that will be taking place in March this year. Every September we hold the New Trends in Publishing seminar, and we also hold a number of networking events, one of which just recently took place, which was our BIC Bash, and is purposely set up just for networking. So that took place on the 15th of November. There are photos from our BIC Bash on our website now, and there's some really good ones on there, so do have a look if you have the time. Just to say, we're also on the web. We've got a new website coming soon, hopefully in the first quarter of 2017. We have an extensive training programme. I've left a leaflet in your packs, so do come to me at the end of the event if you have any questions about any of those. And we're also on all the social media formats that you would expect us to be on, so do connect with us in any way you see fit. I will now pass you over to Jack to introduce BIC.
Thank you.
And I will put my tongue back in.
Good morning, everyone. BIC, our mission is to connect readers with books and provide critical insights into readership worldwide. BIC has connected with readers in the world of discovery for more than 140 years, working with book publishers across all areas and genres, including higher education, trade, scholarly, professional and STM. BIC has a history of collecting book metadata and features many descriptive text elements which we extract from the publisher's Onyx speed, and we're here to work with you on connecting your consumers to your books. We don't charge publishers for their metadata. We're the world's leading provider of bibliographic information management solutions out to the supply chain, and we help publishers booksellers and libraries better serve their customers. And we are a member of the ProQuest family of companies. Two products we have. We have Summon, and we have synthetic solutions that bring library online catalogues to life. Basically, they're filtered through and they take the enhanced metadata. It's a library catalogue enrichment service. Synthetics makes great use of the publisher's enhanced metadata. And our retail product, Books in Print, aggregates metadata from publishers around the globe. And we have over 25 million records, and 18 million of them are active, allowing libraries and retailers to find titles that are published, and it gives them information on how to acquire those print and electronic books. On the next slide, here are a few of our data licensing clients. They can choose to receive Onyx 2.1 or 3, Onyx 3, and we have an API option as well. BIC Data helps to power the largest online retailers promoting book discovery globally. It is a transformative time for the publishers of books, as well as for libraries, retailers and the consumers. And at BIC we can help all of them optimise the purchase of a book in any format by maximising the enhanced metadata available in today's Onyx speed. Moving on quickly, ProQuest, our parent company, offers a growing selection of more than 740,000 ebooks from leading publishers across the globe with coverage of all areas. We have mobile access and platforms built for the research, meet the users' on-demand needs and expectations. Thank you very much. I shall now hand you over to John.
Thank you. I'll probably come down the front because I like to point to the slides. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Right. So over the next few minutes I'm going to look at an introduction to BIC Realtime, give a brief overview of the standards APIs, a deep dive into the order cancellation API, which isn't the most glamorous of the APIs, but I'll talk about that one, and then talk about where to find out more about these APIs. As I go through this, I'm in a reasonably unique position to talk about these APIs because at Bertram's Connect Books, we're a producer of the APIs and we also consume them in our products as well. So it's very much publish for service and also use it in other products that we produce. So I'll try and pull that out as we go through. So BIC Realtime is a suite of 19 APIs designed for the book industry, by the book industry. So it's not that we're trying to use an SAP API or a Microsoft API and make it relevant to the book industry. These are very much customised for the needs of the book industry. It refreshes previous work on web service standards that BIC has developed and resets the foundation for future growth. Companies can use BIC Realtime to provide secure, controlled access to the data, and we'll see more of that in a little while. The new APIs fill gaps in the EDI message sets. There's been lots of EDI transactions, and EDI is great, but there are all gaps in the workflow now, order cancellations being one of the major missings. And it's giving customers access to their data in real time, which really causes costs because the data feeds can be out of date as soon as they're produced. Now this is a slide from the new BIC Realtime user guide, which will be coming out shortly, and it just breaks the APIs down into different families. So we've got a set of APIs covering product metadata, trade ordering, financials, returns, and consumer direct fulfilment. So what is an API? That really ought to say what is a standards-based API. And in this little scenario, really just for the purpose of making the case here, I want you to imagine that we want to put together an iPhone app that lets you scan an ISBN and then display the price and availability of various suppliers. Now, every distributor could go off and invent their own API for doing this. You know, it's just a matter of returning the ISBN, the price, and the availability. But every distributor could do that in a subtly different way, which would mean that the app over here would have to be coded to allow for all those variations. The beauty of the standards-based approach is that every supplier implements the API in the same way, then to add another supplier to the app is really just a matter of adding the URL and the user ID and password for that customer and that supplier. The other thing with APIs is when we're sort of designing systems architecture, we like to think in terms of reusable building blocks. And once you've built up a set of these 19 APIs, you'll find that you're able to use them in all sorts of applications. This is an example of how we've used Bertram's price and availability API to integrate with our Bertline system. It's just an example, it's used in numerous other places, but in this example, we take the data from book data and then merge it in real time with the price and availability information of Bertram's to display bang up-to-date information to the customer. Okay, coming on to talk about order cancellations. As I said, this is a missing in the EDI message set. Customers or consumers on websites have a legal right to cancel a product, and it's always surprising how often people will go onto a website and order a book, and a few minutes later decide to cancel it. The problem is that there is no standard way before BIC Realtime of actually sending a cancellation through the industry. So that really leads to lots of cost, telephone calls, emails, lots of frustration in customer services and call centres. No one really wants to cancel an order. It's a hard sell to make. There is a way to reduce your costs, and I would actually argue that the people processing these cancellations and order traces would actually be better employed selling books than processing all this admin that could be done by systems talking to each other. So the BIC order cancellation API is easy to implement and solves this problem. I think the other point here is it does give customers confidence to actually back order. I speak to some retailers and I say, well, how do you handle this? And they say, well, we don't back order, so we don't get these issues. If the book's not in stock, they won't order it. So this is an example, a typical website. I've just picked the Bertram's website to make the example, but customers, if they want to make a cancellation, can come onto the website and press the cancellation button, and that's fine for ad hoc cancellations, but it means someone sitting there, punching in the order number, going to the website, pressing the cancellation button, and it's all using people's time. But what actually happens certainly on our website, when you click the cancellation button, it's actually running the order cancellation API. So why not just give people access to the order cancellation API so they can put it into their automated workflows? So that's what we've done. So behind that order cancellation button, we actually expose a SOAP API and a REST version of the API. We also publish our test or a sandbox for these APIs so that people can experiment. We publish all of that so you can go to the website and see that we do it. And it's surprising how many customers out there will just go to the website, find these details and just use them and put it into their own systems. And this is very low cost and efficient to support because the customers can just do their own testing against the sandbox, and I'll test, put an order in, cancel it, go around that cycle until it works. And often we don't get involved at all, so it's, compared with EDI, it's a very efficient way of onboarding customers for automation. So as I say, the website's great for ad hoc cancellations, but customers want tight integration into their own automated workflows. The cancellation API allows customers to script and fully automate the process. And this is just an example just to show how easy it is to actually make an order cancellation call to the web service. It's just a URL. Any developer that's got a few months' experience can string together that URL into a script and make the cancellation call. And it's just picking out a few things on there. We've got you can probably pick it out. Got the user ID, the password, the account number. What's the order number of what we want to cancel? What's the line number we want to cancel? What's the ISBN? First of all, tally. And what you'll get back as a result is a nicely formatted XML document, and you can either put that through an XML parser, but I've seen people just do simple string processing on this and pick out one. Stand proof of chemistry quantity, is it variant, was it successful? So you can take a very simple approach. This should be a few hours work to really implement that into a workflow. People shouldn't be saying it's going to take weeks or months to put into systems. So, where can you find out more? So we've got a BIC website. If you go to the BIC website, there's the BIC Realtime section. On there, if you look through there, there's also a section here that you can register to receive the new BIC Realtime user guide when it's published in a few weeks. On that website, it's broken down again by those different API product families. So we've got product metadata. I won't read through all of these, but obviously it's quite comprehensive. All the ordering APIs, financial documents, consumer direct fulfilment. Okay, I'll just quickly go through some of these quotes. It's nice to see a quote from Ingenta and Vesport. So getting this into distributed systems is really important. John Windus over at Book Data. Will Jones over at Wordry. So Wordry.com's been one of our great projects over the last few years. That was entirely implemented by integrating with Bertram's using that set of APIs. We got it up and running in a matter of weeks. Mark Dewberry, who's Executive Director over at Bertram's, just really making the point that it's deeply integrated into Bertrams.com and Bertline, and those APIs are then used every second of the day in 200 plus bookstores and growing all the time. And Jane Johnson over at Dawson Books, very important use of those APIs. So as when we acquired Dawson's, we integrated it, and all that integration is done using these APIs. So what the librarians are seeing is the real-time view of what's in stock in the wholesale systems. And we're very, very keen to extend what we've done into integrated digital and print, so as one set of APIs handling that workflow. And it becomes ever more important in a digital world to be able to interact in real time. People don't want to wait for an EDI message to go overnight. When you've just ordered an ebook, you want instant access to the book and all the metadata that supports it. So will there be a BIC real-time plug fest then? We've got this idea within BIC to actually have probably a full day event, get a load of techies together and try and brainstorm ways to put these APIs together. We typically set out a challenge, so it might be around how could we extend this into automatic discovery, or how would we set out how quickly can we put a server together, maybe we can publish some open source coming out of it. So really just want to get people's feedback. See me afterwards if you'd be interested in attending that type of event. I think to be viable we'd probably need at least 3 or 4 companies involved sending their developers along for a day. But it's, I think we did something right at the beginning of the BIC web services project along those lines to try and work out all the interoperability issues between, say, a Microsoft platform and a Java platform, and if that was actually really worthwhile, I'd have the developers in the room. That's it. So, over to Francis.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Francis.
I'll stay put.
Okay.
Good morning. What I wanted to do is to sort of step back from the detail a bit and talk about context in which BIC Realtime has come about, and hopefully in that way to sort of illuminate some of the comparisons and benefits associated with it. So the main context in which we're thinking about BIC Realtime is in the context of existing sort of large investment in EDI, which, I mean, in terms of standard EDI, book trade's been using it for about 20 years now, and I looked for a few quotes, and I found this one on Wikipedia about Tradercoms. The Tradercoms standard has been obsolescent since development ceased in 1995, so that's nearly 22 years ago. Despite this, it has proved durable, and the majority of the retail EDI traffic in the UK still uses it. Now, whether that's a currently accurate statement, I'm not sure, but I think it indicates that EDI has been very resilient in the areas where it has been applied, and I think that's partly because people have invested so much in it that they can't conceive of having to throw that all away. But I think also it has done the job that it was set out to do very well. Edifact was first standardised internationally in '87, but it's about 20 years since it got traction in the book trade with the work of Editeur, and it's about the same kind of length of time since in North America they started using X12. So we're looking at sort of 20 years with EDI, and the question is, why hasn't it changed in that time? Well, a lot has changed in that time. We've had the whole development of the internet and the web in those 20 years to where we are now. I'll just give you some pointers to dates on that. 1991 was when the World Wide Web was invented. XML, which is what we're talking about in the context of BIC Realtime, is about 20 years old as well, published in 1997. Web services, as a kind of alternative to the kind of batch communication that EDI represents, has been around not so long. I mean, it was only they were only starting its development around 1998 with development of SOAP, and the latest version of SOAP has only been around for 10 years. And with that, the web services description language, which allows you to come up with a standard specification of what your API looks like. And then the whole thing, John mentioned REST as an alternative to SOAP. This is a use of the simple HTTP protocols and protocol headings and fields, and that actually has arisen in the last 20 years, starting with an academic piece of work done in about 2000. Most of what has led to BIC Realtime has happened in that period since 2000, with Editeur developing Onyx first of all, and that the first version of Onyx came out before 2000, but the kind of Onyx that we're familiar with today is from 2001, Onyx 2.1 and Onyx 3.0, which we're now moving to, came out in 2009. Around the same sort of time as Onyx was beginning to get traction, BISG and BIC and Editeur started to look at work on an XML version of traditional EDI for the book trade, and their purposes were twofold. I think that the first was to come up with a sort of low-cost way of filling some of the gaps that EDI was not going to fill. I think there was a realization even then that they weren't going to want to use EDI to fill in the gaps between the major transactional messages that had already been developed. It was just too costly to implement traditional EDI for these smaller messages, which perhaps are sort of used more exceptionally. And also it meant that with new players coming into the market, new business models, new markets opening up with online retailers and so on, that there would be an alternative to having to develop their own implementations of EDI. So Editeur published the Editext set of XML message formats, and these were basically equivalent to the existing Tradercoms and Edifact message formats for standard transactions like ordering and price, not price availability, but certainly ordering and invoicing and ship notices and things like that. But there haven't been very many adoptions of that, and I think it's interesting to think about why that might be. One thing was that Editext only defined the XML payload formats. It didn't actually say how you would exchange those. And so people said, well, we already have a method of exchange. We've got EDI. We could use the web, but then there's a sort of unspecified and at that time unstandard way of communicating these messages. And obviously people had their existing investment in EDI to think about, and the fact that I already did most of this stuff. So there was little incentive in moving from EDI to Editex at that stage. In recent years there's been a renewed interest in Editex, but mainly looking at new things that Editex is doing which are not in the standard EDI mold. So for example, there is Editex for sales reporting. The need came out of North America, where suddenly publishers found that with agency model trading they had to submit tax returns for sales tax purposes, so they needed to have detailed reports from their retail partners as to exactly what books had been sold, and so the sales reporting format came out with a very strong legal requirement in the US particularly. BIC Realtime itself, so that's come out of, the initiative came out of the eFor Books project, which was about 10 years, just over 10 years ago now, and there seemed to be a real need to try and develop a standard way in which these additional messages, particularly I think price and availability was one that people were first thinking about, could be exchanged. And over a period of time between 2006 and 2012, BIC published a whole series of these message formats, and but they weren't getting enough traction and uptake, and so a decision was taken in about 2014, sorry, to re-energize the effort to try and push these standard APIs into the market under the BIC Realtime banner. So where are the benefits in terms of EDI? Well, developing non-XML EDI services from scratch is hard. You've got a very strong dependency on specialist EDI tools and the specialist developers who know how to work with those things. So it can be a very costly business. EDI is batch-oriented, so whereas web services are real-time, EDI transactions can take hours to complete, whereas you would expect web service to give you a pretty immediate response. Web services, as I think John has indicated, are in practice easier to develop and test. And so there is in addition to that, you've got a larger developer ecosystem for developing web services than you have for other forms of transactional communication. So you can go out there into the market and find computer scientists who already understand XML and web services from just what they studied in a university course. We're not looking for people necessarily with relevant industrial experience, business experience. There are off-the-shelf tools available for web service development. There are, and now of course there are standards for how you express the message formats and the API processes using WSGLs and XML schemas. And there are lots of XML development tools out there, as you're probably aware. So EDI works really well at what it does, but for these new requirements that are coming along, it's and some of which have existed for some time, like order cancellation. My feeling is that web services really offer huge benefits in terms of cost and speed of development of solutions to these. So some of the BIC Realtime API, just a quick overview of the list. Some of them can be said to have been derived from this earlier work on Editex by Editor. So there are formats, payload formats that are used in the BIC Realtime APIs, which are really very closely based upon the Editor XML EDI formats, and that's a list of some of the APIs that are in that category. You've then got, in addition to that, you've got APIs which have been developed to meet new needs that weren't part of traditional, anywhere close to being traditional EDI, and so we have developed specific formats, payload formats for communicating that information using BIC Realtime. So price availability, retrieval of individual product metadata records, and then some of these important sort of exceptional requirements later on in the trading process, such as requesting back order release, shipping notification, and so on. And some of those are among the APIs that have been developed most recently. We've got, as John said, 2 flavors of BIC Realtime that we can offer. You can either develop a web service client using simple HTTP GET methods, which I sort of hesitate to describe it as classic REST, for those of you familiar with this, because people who are sort of REST enthusiasts get quite sort of religious about exactly what is meant by that. But it does follow the sort of simple HTTP protocol approach, whereas the alternative is to use a more sort of SOAP-based, in which the requests are actually formulated as payload messages in their own right. The request is always going to be, you always get an XML message back, but with REST you just formulate a simple HTTP query, whereas with SOAP you actually attach a request as an XML payload message to the request. So that sort of graphically gives you an idea of those two. GET, you're sending a query string to the server and getting an XML document back. With the SOAP approach, with POST, you send your request as a document, transaction document, and you get another document back in return. So the GET approach is suited to simple requests such as I wish to place an order for just one book, or I wish to cancel that particular order, as John showed you an example of, or give me the price availability for a book. So single individual items are easily handled using GET. But if you want to batch your requests and you want to say, well, I want to sort of submit an order now for 10 books, or much larger number of items are in the request, then that may be easy to do using the SOAP approach, posting an XML message containing the full details of your request. Either way, the response is excellent. So on the BIC Realtime website, you'll see, as John indicated, specification documents for all these APIs. And each of those provides, within the documentation, links to the associated XML schema for both request and payload response messages, WSGL signature. And we're going to get an implementation guide soon. Please come and participate in this work. There's more to be done, I'm sure, and do get involved. Thank you. And I shall hand over to Simon.
Thank you. Okay, good morning all. I'm Simon Palland. I'm the Digital and IT Services Manager for Gardner's Books and the Little Group, which also includes Askew's, Holt's, Brown's Books for Students, AMS and Glasgow. But I'm here with my Gardner's hat on today. And I'm going to be talking about the price and availability web service specifically, and the real-world use of that and the importance of it in this day and age. Now, just to have a look at what we do, and we're certainly not unique in this respect. We've got a catalogue of 7 million physical books, of which at any given time 500,000 of those are physically in the building. We have an extended catalogue of 6.5 million, which I divided there into two. There's the 5 million print-on-demand titles, and we have a growingly important range, which we call our the extended catalogue of 1.5 million titles. And these are titles which we have normal day-to-day trading relationships with suppliers for, but we don't commercially want to actually carry in the building, but we're assured by our suppliers that they're readily available for quick turnaround. A huge range of publishers that we're dealing with. Much the same again for digital products, catalogue of 1.5 million there, and 1/3 for entertainment products. All of this is going out to a huge customer base globally. I should just point out, my apologies, I've gone paperless with my notes, so probably end in tears, but there we go. So in terms of how we actually get that out to our customers at the moment, bearing in mind that from all of those sources, we're getting 75,000 daily availability changes, and that's both stock level changes and also report status changes. 2,500 price changes, which is including discount changes as well. 1,100 new titles a day. These aren't necessarily new publications, but these are new to gardeners titles, and roughly 1,000 outgoing titles as well. Some of those are OPs, some we've decided commercially to no longer offer. In order to do that, we provide retailers with twice daily P&A files. We produce a whole raft of custom feeds for our customers, so our files can consist of anything from 500,000 lines to the full 7 million times countless hundreds of retailers collecting those. We also try and keep retailers on top of our stock level movements, provide hourly inventory feeds as well. So we've got a massive data supply process going on in the background there. But a few years ago we implemented the BIC Realtime P&A web service. And what is it? Well, very simply, it's a web service link straight into our live stock control system to provide retailers with an on-the-spot view of exactly what is happening with an individual title in terms of how many we've physically got on the shelf, what its current availability is if we haven't, or even if we have, its current pricing and discounting for them as well. Where does that sit? Well, it's available and is used by all of our storefront websites, which are our white label websites that we run for various retailers. We either provide them with the sites or run them for them. Our own trade sites, the feeds and the access to the web service for all of our retailers' websites, our own GuardLink EPOS system, Hive. We also provide it to other EPOS system providers and some of the data aggregators as well. So we've got all of these vendors accessing our P&A web service for real-time information on our catalogues. Why is it important? Well, as we've seen, got a huge number of publishers supplying us data at the moment. All of that data at the moment is arriving in a variety of P&A feeds. They come in a variety of formats, some of those EDIs, some CSV, some Onyx, some spreadsheets, and the list goes on. It's kind of what we wholesalers do in terms of trying to join up all the dots. But within that, we've got 5,000, on average, 5,000 daily availability changes, 2,500 price changes, and again, roughly 1,100 new titles appearing and about 1,000 disappearing. So, one way or another, we have to try and get this processed and churned out to our customers. Now, when we see our customers, they have the usual commercial priorities. That's discount, it's handling costs, which includes shipping, handling, and any servicing that's involved. They want to know availability, lead times, and they want to know returnability as well. However, more recently, what has become more of an issue for our customers are the consumer-derived priorities that they have, and this is that the price that they're quoting an item on their website is indeed the price they're going to get charged and the price the consumer is going to get charged. The availability is as it has been described, either by us and or the direct supplier they're working with, and that it's going to be delivered on time. And the big buzzword in this, and I heard it so often at Frankfurt and at BEA and at London, and this has been the case for the last few years, is the customer promise that they're making, and that is the key word in this. They are very heavily keen on ensuring that that customer promise is maintained. Now, it's not to say that they won't then hammer us all over the discounts and the handling costs and the availability times and everything else that they always do as well, but the priorities have shifted. So what do they actually require of a supplier? Well, accuracy, reliability, but above all at the moment, confidence. And this is another major key word that is coming up. They want to be absolutely confident in the information that they're receiving from the data sources that they're working with. So I put together a fairly simplistic map of how sort of the current P&A data feed flow works at the moment. Nothing particularly surprising in that. At one end we have the publishers, distributors and POD facilities. In the middle you have the aggregation services, you have wholesalers, and all of that is feeding through to retailers. It looks simplistic, but then when you actually times the publisher and distributor side by the sheer number of those that there are, all of a sudden you end up with a very messy and complicated supply flow. Now, for the most part, those data feeds do actually flow quite nicely. However, as John intimated earlier, there is inherently a flaw in that, insofar as it takes anything from 1 to 7 days for that data to make its way through the chain, depending on frequency of feeds from the supplier, and also batch times and processing times and everything else. So by the time the retailer's actually received it, the chances are it's already reasonably well out of date. So, the availability information is potentially inaccurate, the lead times are potentially inaccurate, and also the pricing information. The result of that is that there is hesitation from retailers to list some of those extended catalogue items from that we hold, so that's 1.5 million titles, and may not list them at all. So what do? We, and I have a team that churns through the data that we receive, and we essentially score or apply a confidence rating to the data that we're receiving based on frequency, order fail rate that we have with those suppliers, and we then offer our retailers in turn a hybrid of a catalogue based on the level of confidence for which they require for that extended catalogue. So they will receive our full catalogue of everything that we have physically in stock, and then either some or all of our extended catalogues. So the big downside for that, of course, is that some publishers may have content not listed at all. And we actually went through ourselves a fairly painful process earlier this year, and we delisted approximately 196 publishers because we just do not get even a monthly availability file from them that we can actually reliably work from and then offer. All of this causes massive order cancellations, price changes, and availability inaccuracies, which our retailers just aren't standing for these days. So that was a reduction in our overall catalogue of the best part of 200,000 titles. However, what we're left with in our catalogue is only titles that we're actually confident that we're actually going to receive if we place an order for it. So, with the introduction of the web service, we have a new dynamic to the equation. We're not, and we haven't replaced the need for those data feeds. We still need them, except all that's happened is now they have become effectively a database and catalogue management tool. And we're now able to provide our retailers with access to web service, which gives them instant visibility of what is happening within the gardeners warehouse. And potentially, if that goes on to the green section of the supply chain there, the publishers and distributors, then you're actually talking about real-time access to stock availability and information within 1 to 2 seconds. How is that actually used by a retailer? Well, generally, and we always ask our retailers not to try and hit us for 700 or 7 million requests every morning. It doesn't replace our data feeds. It's about providing the consumer with an instant response the moment they actually pull up a single product on the retailer's website, and certainly by the time they go to the checkout, the retailer can do a last-minute availability check to make sure, A, if we've got it, they can then promise their next day delivery and whatever else they're doing. If we haven't got it and we've given them a lead time on that of a few days, they can then offer that to their consumer. But it's about providing the consumer with accurate and confident information. Our objectives, certainly my objectives, are to try and integrate as much as possible with our publishers and distribution partners a web service, that P&A web service, so that we can actually poll in real time as well those distributors and publishers that we're working with for current price availability and also ideally stock holding as well. Why do we want to do that? Well, we mentioned the extended catalogue that we offer. We want to be able to relay that information in real time back to our retailer base. But also gardeners and Bertrams as well have our own commercial needs. We want to know, we want to be able to manage our ordering processes, our warehouse systems. We want to be able to have visibility of what our supply partners have, just as much as gardeners, retailers want to have of us. So, lastly, what are the advantages of using the real-time web service? Well, clearly, immediate and truly accurate availability information, lead times and pricing information. It's about promoting that accuracy and reliability to our retail partners down the chain. As a consequence, they are very likely to list that supplier's and that publisher's title range, which will result in, hopefully, increased consumer confidence, which cascades into increased retailer confidence, which hopefully then cascades into increased sales for all of us. That is it. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Are there any questions?
I suppose it's worth saying, the platinum standard would actually be probably a daily Onyx file for actually establishing the type on the database with a real-time P&A for checking availability at the last moment on the product detail page, which is very, very interactive.
That is the holy grail, yes. The enthusiasm with which our retailers have grasped the use of the P&A web service is very encouraging. And they do very quickly start looking at the other parts of our catalogue that we haven't necessarily got in the building, and start looking at incorporating those within their sites. And some of those have been some very challenging international customers, and we are seeing very positive sales growth as a result of that. We do. And it's one thing to have a web service, but it's still just as important to have that that information behind it truly accurate. And we both have data teams analysing and looking at the data we're getting and qualifying it. And certainly I have a team that are challenging suppliers on why it is we're being told one day that it's either in stock or is available, and we go to order it later that day or the following day, and we get a cancellation message back. Why is that?
How long did it take you to implement the pricing availability?
It's a good question. The web service itself was very quick. And the integration with our back-end databases was very quick. The hurdle for us was navigating the front-end, back-end security arrangements, and that's probably the case with most environments these days. The web service itself is actually quite a straightforward thing to implement and code.
So encryption, all that kind of business.
Yeah, and you know, developers. You know, we have a front-end, back-end messaging system in place to to go through our security systems. You can look at using online, offline databases and all sorts of other ways of achieving the same end. But we actually found it a very quick and painless process to do.
How many requests you get in a day from price and availability requests from downstream partners from you? For your downstream partners?
At the moment, we currently receive about 120, 125,000 requests per day. Yeah.
I think the price and availability is probably the hardest one to implement because it's very difficult to predict how many requests you want to actually get, and you want that data to be real time, so you have to basically allow access through to your back-end systems to see and making sure you get that real-time information. But it's what levels of protection, what levels of caching you put into place so that your back-end system doesn't get swamped with inbound requests. So but it's the actual web service is easy. It's how you create the infrastructure to handle potentially 500,000, 1 million requests and whatever you're going to receive.
Is this based on physical stock in your building or taking into account suppliers, your suppliers?
No, we take into account the suppliers as well. So obviously the 500,000 titles that are in stock are easy. You know, we've got X number of each title in stock, and that's what we return. Obviously, part of that calculation that's going on is any ring-fence stock, consignment stock, and all the other things that we wholesalers get up to. But we're also, in conjunction, using those P&A feeds from suppliers on extended catalogue items, and also our daily experience with delivery times, order times and fulfilment times with those suppliers, calculating, hopefully, accurate lead times on stock that we know that a distributor has, and therefore how quickly it will arrive with us and then get out the door from us to either the consumer or the shop.
Do you see the publishers and distributors seeing the same kind of benefits from this that you are seeing?
We do. I mean, the big gain for publishers, and it's the big risk, as I highlighted there, is that there are. For some publishers, either entire sections of their catalogue or possibly their entire catalogues that just are not appearing on retail websites. Now, what is slightly unknown is, because they're visible on some major sites, is are they actually losing sales through lack of visibility? Is a consumer going to Hive and not finding a title, then going to Amazon and finding it and ordering it, or are they just giving up on it? The analysis isn't there to be able to determine that. But what is clear from our experience is that the retailers that do start using this and then expanding and going with our confidence levels on the extended catalogues, we are seeing increased sales from those ranges, which as a consequence obviously means that we're buying more from our suppliers of those ranges.
Okay, more question now? Okay, well thank you all very much for coming. All of the information that I gave you at the beginning of my presentation is included in our What's Happening email that we send out monthly, so if anyone isn't on that list but would like to be, then do come and talk to me at the end of this event. We will obviously be holding a large number of BIC breakfasts monthly next year. We've got quite a schedule already drawn up, so do keep an eye out for that. We are going to publish it shortly. Yeah, thank you all very much for coming. Cheers.
Thank you.
So can't get them talk.